The story of the original American Pitbull Terrier. What an exciting topic. You guys have been asking me to talk about this and educate about this, to illustrate to others, people that have been coming to my YouTube channel, people that have been coming to my lives and stuff like that. They want me to talk about the original American Pitbull Terrier. They know that when they Google and they put Pitbull dogs and they look at the images, there's so many different colors, there's so many different sizes, so many dogs, so many people, each one have a story of why and this and that. They call them Pitbulls and etc., etc. And people understand these are not real American Pitbull Terriers. There is no way that all these dogs of different colors are American Pitbull Terriers. So here we go for you guys that want to learn. I'm going to tell you this. I got 34 years of experience breeding American Pitbull Terriers with major success. There's people that have been breeding dogs for 50 years or more and they don't have success. Success is measured by the quality of the dogs that you have bred compared to the entire breed. When you breed dogs like Global Grand Champion, Ciega the Great, Global Grand Champion Chilindrina, Champion Awesome Buck ROM, Global Champion Mechanic Buck Rum, Global Champion the Backman Rum. When your dog is on the covers of magazines and covers of books, you are a respected figure within the American Pitbull Terrier. And others that don't have this kind of merits or this kind of accolades or this kind of journey around the planet all over the world, they didn't meet these standards, they didn't get to this level because they couldn't do it or they just didn't want to do it. We achieved major success. And the reason why I talk about all this stuff about my success before I start giving you all this story of the dogs is because if you're smart, you shouldn't be listening to everybody. Anybody can make a video just like this and say lies or convince you, or someone that knows how to talk very sweet, make you believe that what they're saying is the truth. Someone can have better graphics than I have and convince you. But the truth is that the only person that really knows the story is the one that is at the very top of the food chain. And that person is me. By the numbers. You don't have to like my attitude. You don't have to like the way I talk. But when you look at the scoreboard, when you look at the numbers, I'm going to be at the top by myself. Whether I sound cocky or whether I sound honest or not. That is how it is. I will start by telling you that most of the people that are in the dogs and talk about dogs, they don't know anything about the dogs. They really only have limited experience, seasonal experience, different regional limited experience in the region where they live, in the times that they live, with the bloodline that they work. They don't have a universal idea and they didn't study all the different cultures that come within the dogs. You're going to have people that have show dogs. You're going to have people that have mutts and they think they have real pit bulls. You're going to have the swamp, the local dog fighters in America that love crime and love, you know, in order for you to be the top dog, you got to be like the biggest rapist or the biggest criminal in America. And you're going to have some very delusional people that have no merits, and some of them don't even have dogs, talking about dogs in different YouTube channels and in different things, promoting lies. And because YouTube will promote anything that anybody can see, if you get 1 million dummies, 1 million monkeys looking at our video and clicking in it, YouTube will promote it. And having the most views doesn't mean that you're looking at the truth. I'm setting these as the principles of our conversation so you can understand everything in the angle that I'm coming from. I will start by saying that even my knowledge is limited. It's limited, but it's founded on basic studies that I have done of the breed and that I have done with the breed with my own dogs, the Golden Vein by Chico Lopez. I will start by telling you as well that when everything started, people have doubts. There's many storytellers, and the reason is because in 1990, not everybody was writing things about the American Pitbull Terrier. Not everybody was talking about these dogs. For a lot of people, other things were important at the time. Remember, America became a country in 1776. And some dogs came in 1776, but they didn't make any splash within anything that be considered remotely considered as the breed. But they were in America already. Some of those men that came from overseas, they kept on importing dogs into the United States. And those dogs were fighting dogs. And you got to remember these. For those fighting dogs to come from the old world, from Europe, from the UK, or from Ireland, those dogs needed to travel in crates. They needed to travel in small kennels. And a lot of the times when the people move during the 1700s or 1800s to America, they were not moving themselves to come and explore and conquest the new continent. They were coming and moving because they made this continent of America their home, and they were coming with their families, their children. Imagine these men coming with the families, crossing an ocean. They'll take them sometimes even 2 months to come to cross the Atlantic Ocean. And those men couldn't bring 150-pound mutt, calling it a pit bull, an aggressive dog that wanted to kill everybody. When you travel by airplane or when you're sending a letter from one city to another city, you have to put a stamp. The heavier the envelope, the more you pay to ship it. So when you get into a boat, everybody gets killed. The bigger the dog, the more you pay. And so the people were actually working on bringing their dogs. And believe it or not, those fighting dogs, they called them half and a half before they came to America, they were mixed bred dogs. They were mixed bred dogs that they were creating already the basis of one day will be the real dog. And those dogs were actually already selected by not being aggressive towards people. Believe it or not, those men had discovered basic principles that come with something that they didn't know that today we know. They didn't know, and today we know, I repeat myself, as epigenetics. If you do not know what epigenetics is, you need to write it down, epigenetics, and then you need to study the videos that I made about epigenetics and other studies that have been made epigenetics on dogs and the incredible transformation that happened to the wolf when he became a pet due to the epigenetics. And so these people understood that the dogs that had courage and they were fighting, putting their life on the line, that they actually enjoy fighting because it's an animal that was developed to enjoy fighting, the pleasure of finishing the mission. Those dogs that had courage, they were becoming pets rather than being aggressive towards men. The opposite of a guard dog. Whenever you involve pet people and pet people become breeders and pet people become storytellers of the dogs, you run into problems because they don't have the real idea and background information of the real breed. They come in with ideas from German Shepherds, from Rottweilers, from Doberman and other breeds that affect and cloud their understanding of the American Pitbull Terrier because they were not real American Pitbull Terrier lovers. But whenever you get these people that are from kennel clubs, for instance, they come in with things like conformation and show dogs and stuff like that, judges. They also affect the breed with their own thinking and their own way of selecting quality. They really don't know quality. Most of those people never seen a real great American Pitbull Terrier on the level of Global Grand Champion, Sega the Great Dog of the Year, to give you an example, to be honest with you. And so what happens is those dogs made it to America. There was not American Staffordshire Terrier, and the only dog that was called a half and a half with dogs that came from the old continent. With enough time as those dogs got established in America, people started to communicate. Remember, it was open range America. Imagine that there were no big cities like, all these cities around the Midwest or in the South of the United States or in the West of the United States. So people that were in Virginia or they were in South Carolina or in Ohio or whatever, if they wanted to communicate with somebody, they would walk for days in a carriage. There was not internet, there was not YouTube, there was nothing. You listen, there was not even the United States Post Office in so many places. So these men, when they needed to communicate with somebody, they will walk And then when the postal service was established, then men started to send letters. And they knew that somebody so many miles away had some dogs that were half and halves, and they were developing, and this part is crucial, pay attention. They were developing bloodlines. Sometimes you hear people saying, oh, to make a Labradoodle, you mix a Labrador with a Poodle. Okay, that's a mud. The American Pitbull Terrier was not created like that. It was not you take this dog and you cross it to this dog, you get an American Pitbull Terrier. That's absolutely incorrect. The real American Pitbull Terrier has bloodlines in it. And the bloodlines mean that there was a man that actually took his time, which means decades, to develop trails of a dog to become superior. And the only reason these dogs were bred was superiority. They were not bred to cater you or to make somebody happy and blah, 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 and all these fluffy feelings. You also got to transport yourself in time. These men were not the kind of men that paint their nails, that wear earrings, and maybe they want to change their sex gender. These were men that were macho men of the highest caliber, because survival was necessary, and being an alpha male was necessary. Hard work was necessary. Nothing was given to you. You had to earn it. You had to go look for it. And so these men, they wanted to have a dog, they wanted to have a horse, whatever they wanted to have was going to be on that same level like them. And so these dogs, these fighting dogs, they were called pit dogs, established in America as a pit dog. And these pit dogs started to create the first bloodlines. And those men, some of them were importing dogs, and some of them were already establishing some of the dogs here. And what happens is America became the beam of opportunity, even for the men that wanted to fight dogs from the whole continent, to move into America and start developing themselves their great bloodlines. There is men from Poland, men from the UK, men from Ireland, a lot of men from Ireland working very hard. There were no Latinos involved in it. There were no black men involved in it. Those are the basis of the American Pitbull Terrier. Somewhere around the 1930s, 1940s, people, I'm sorry, I take that back. Somewhere around the 1830s, 1800s, there was a man that gave the American Pitbull Terrier the name of it. Someone that says, guys, we got established bloodlines already, and we have what is called a body type or type or style that is different than the dogs they have in Europe. And these dogs are now American. We made a change. We made a significant change. And they knew that some of the guys that were coming in from the old world, they were testing their best dogs against the American dogs, and these dogs are superior. And they have a lot of pride to it. America being a young country, the army wanted to have their own dog. And they didn't want to have a Russian dog, or they didn't want to have all these dogs. So that giving the dog a name already, or something that was established in the new continent of America, it was more than due. And they gave the name of American Pitbull Terrier. 4 words, APBT, American Pitbull Terrier. So the nickname, it was Pitbull. The names that were inside. The word pit means the place where the dogs were fought, in the pit. And there were rules on different places of America. There were rules established by a particular man that was honorable and people liked him. Remember, people were fighting dogs, and the dogs were, some of them were millionaires, some of them were rich men, some of them were doctors, some of them were lawyers, some of them were judges. Some of the big fights in New York City happened around Times Square, and the matches were reported on the Police Gazette. So policemen were involved in it. People that were in Hollywood were involved in it. The great fighter of boxing, which he came from being the fighter of bare knuckle, the heavyweight champion of the world, Mr. John L. Sullivan, he came to America and he became an important man for the breed. Him and other Irishmen started bringing dogs from Ireland. They started having some dogs here, and then you have the story of the old family Red Nose that was established as a bloodline in America. And there were many names that I don't want to mention right now because I don't want to. I'm driving and I want to be accurate on what I'm saying. But I'm giving you the clues for you to start. This is going to serve you as a guide for you to start looking for information. You need to weed through the fake information. But there was a man by the last name Wallace that worked with those dogs. There was Hanfield that worked with some of the bases of those dogs and some of those dogs. And then there were different men. You'll find out that most men that really matter on the breed are going to be a decade or 2 decades apart. And there's always different men that work through seasons, through different regions with different dogs. But usually those dogs, the impact that they have in the general sense of the breed, it doesn't reach out to the next generation. So their efforts kind of died out. And there's thousands and thousands of men that give their best shot and they were part of the competition, but they couldn't last time. Time didn't remember them. But the very high peaks has always been remembered. And there was tough guys. Some of those guys were hustlers. Some of those guys were, especially in the South, they were dwindlers. And, it was a tough world being around those dogs and the people in the dogs. The terminology of Dogman, it was born and birthed to define a man that had high impact in the American Pitbull Terrier world. That man was someone that dedicated his life completely to the betterment of the breed. That's the basis of being a dogman. And it was not someone that just owned a dog, because that is called a pet owner. And even if you own 300 dogs, you're still a pet owner. If you're doing basic things like setting up chains and working dogs and doing this stuff and yada yada, that still doesn't make you a dogman. You become a dogman when you create a positive impact with influence through a long periods of time for the breed. And it's something that it was a title earned. You couldn't call yourself a dogman on your own at the time because the men had honor. Some gentlemen will call you, you are a dogman, and they'll respect you as a dogman. It was like a social class of people that being a dogman was something very special. Of course, there were dog fanciers and there were dogmen. Very different than today, where back in the 1990s, I remember when I started in the dogs, there were some people that will call themselves dogmen. And in front of me, I heard what they told them. Why you a dogman? Why you keep telling people you're a dogman? You're not a dogman, dude. You're not a dogman. You have a couple dogs. You've been around the dogs for a little bit, but you're not a dogman. What have you done? What have you accomplished? I hear them arguing. And I understood clearly that even on those times in the 1990s, not every bum can call themselves a dogman. And that was important. That understanding was very, very important. So all the stories were kind of blurry. Some of them are in letters. Some of them are in some books. And the stories are not solid anywhere in any place as far as how the breed was developed in all those times. All we know is that the AKC was very jealous of the UKC, the founder of the name American Pitbull Terrier, that they didn't want to give him any credit. And they tell their own story, but they didn't want to give him any credit for the American Pitbull Terrier. And they say, we don't want to give credit for the name of those dogs. And so we're going to create our own breed, and we're going to call it differently. They didn't give any hopes to the underdog that meant that his name will outlast their own ideas. And so they created a name called American Staffordshire Terrier. And that American Staffordshire Terrier does not have the word pet in it. It's not a real pit bull. They took some dogs from the UK, from a town called Staffordshire, and they started mixing them with some of the dogs from America that were already called American Pitbull Terriers. And they had a different process of development. And that's where most people fell short when they tell the story. That there is a process of development, that the core of the American Pitbull Terrier is competition, and that the American Pitbull Terrier, that dog, that particular dog, is a dog that has been built in a framework where only the best male breed the best female, and not any dummy, and not just any dummy can come and claim that that's the best dog and the best female and have pretentious ideas. That the men that make those ideas and make those processes are actually real dogmen, men that earn the right to, and they have influenced the breed. And so the breed went By the 1990s, you had already the American Staffordshire Terrier, the first knockoff of the real American Pitbull Terrier those times. And remember what I just said, the breed continues growing, and it has a component of competition. So by genetics, by selection, there were a lot of changes that happened. What was a real American Pitbull Terrier in the 1900s is not a real American Pitbull Terrier today. The real American Pitbull Terrier today is a lot better than the real American Pitbull Terrier of the 1900s. And it's because it's changing, because of the word of this magical man called Dougman. You probably never met a Dogman, and for most part, when someone tells you he's a Dogman, he's lying to you. He's maybe pretending to be a Dogman, and he don't even know it. That's why in 2010, I created a t-shirt that sold out. And the t-shirt says, I am not a Dogman, I am only Chico Lopez. And the reason why I said that is because so many people will come and shake my hand and say, hey, how you doing, Mr. Lopez? I'm a Dogman too. And I was like, how is this guy a Dogman? Let me ask you a question. What's the name of those great dogs that you have, your grand champions, your global grand champions, your dogs of the year? What have you done? No, but I got dogs. I know somebody, I got dogs. I feel sorry for those guys, and because I didn't want to argue with anybody, I said, if those are Dogmen, then I'm better than a Dogman. I'm just Chico Lopez. I did it in a sarcastic way, of course, but the real Dogmen were responsible for the growth and birth of the bloodlines and of the breed. And those dogs were not aggressive towards people. The whole idea of pit bulls hurting people and stuff like that, it started in two different areas. The number one and most dangerous area was the area of the casual breeders. The breeders in the neighborhoods, where they didn't exist, those breeders in the neighborhoods. They didn't have these neighborhoods, these ghetto places full of people and breeding dogs. And that's where someone has a puppy, give the puppies away, sell them at a cheap price. The guy gets a dog, he breeds the dog himself, 7 puppies, 7 gives that will get bred. Those 7 puppies will have 7 puppies themselves, and those dogs will have 7 puppies, and they became the term Pitbull as a common dog from the street. But it's not a real American Pitbull Terrier. It was away from the watchful eye of a Dogman. And so by the mid 1950, 1940s, you clearly see there's several types of pit bulls or dogs that are using the name Pitbull. But there's only one real Pitbull. And the one real Pitbull, so you can have an idea, guys like Eric Tudor, he owns the real Pitbull. But then you have the UKC dogs. Although he raised some dogs with UKC, the UKC dogs were show dogs. And then you have the Staffordshire Terriers, which are not real American Pitbull Terriers, but people call them pit bulls. The ones with papers, the one without no papers, the ones on the streets. And then you have the show dogs. The show dogs basically their job is to pretend to look as close as possible to the real deal, but they're not the real deal. And once you have this understanding that they're not the real deal, then you know that they're not a real American Pitbull Terriers. The real American Pitbull Terriers they were always just a little bit, the less amount of dogs in the entire planet of the world pit bulls that were real American Pitbull Terriers. And as the world was changing by 1970, the real American Pitbull Terrier, 1974, 75, 76, the American Pitbull Terriers were hit by bad news from the government. And became less. They were more on the ground. They became less and less and less. But the real Dogmen were working on the ground, and they were building these dogs that were not aggressive towards people. But there were problems because some of those new kids coming in for money and the gamblers, they didn't care about breeding a dog that was aggressive towards people and hurt children and hurt people, and they bred them as well. Dogs like quitters also, like different dogs like Snooty, for instance, or Rascal. They bred them no matter what. And you have heavy man biters like Chinamen, like Zeebo. They were bred excessively, and those dogs the people bred those puppies and bred them, and those dogs trickled down to regular society, and they bred those dogs with bigger dogs and other dogs and created the nasty dogs, the so-called blue dog, and they mixed it with other dogs as well, like the Staffordshire Terrier, the ones without papers on the streets, and that created the bully. Some people back in 1985, they never met the real American Pitbull Terrier, and they wanted to take the aggressiveness of those mutts, and they created a different mutt called the American Bully. They were not called American Bully for many years. They were actually running under the flag of American Pitbull Terriers, and they were hanging papers on those dogs, and they were nasty, and they became nastier and nastier, and one day they called them XL, and the double X, and the triple X, and the giant, and everything that has a name Pitbull, it becomes sensational. People are in love with the name Pitbull, to the point that there is a singer that called himself Pitbull, and that gave him a major platform. If you would put the name Pitbull and look for images, you're probably going to see the picture of a singer rather than the picture of a dog. Do that and you'll check what I'm saying. And it happens because the name Pitbull, it carries so much power. The dogs were nanny dogs at the beginning of the 1900s, or during the 1800s, and they were the best dogs. And the situation is that even if you take just a little bit of the sparkles of the real dog and a little 10 puppies of mutts, they're not real pit bulls, just the sparkles of the real pit bull will make for a great pet many times. But then again, also, if the dogs were developed for human aggression, for protection, for guard dogs, for junkyard dogs, that will develop a dog that was aggressive. And when they breed those dogs, there was inconsistency. You'll have a dog that's aggressive towards people, and you have a dog that loves people. And when a dog beats somebody, it came out on the news. And when a bully, American Bully, or an XL or double X, they bite somebody, it goes to the news and they say they're pit bulls. But in reality, by now, you understand that none of those are pit bulls. That's why in the year 2010, 2012, I decided to coin the phrase, the real pit bull, the real American Pitbull Terrier. And the reason why is because I was not selling dogs to anybody, but I understood I already was for decades in the dogs. And I understood that we were facing a problem in society in America. They were calling pit bulls anything that moves around, call it a pit bull. And the new kids that they were being born somewhere around 2010, by the time they became 2020, by the time 2030, they will think that the pit bull is a nasty dog that they were presented as a pit bull. So I wanted to create a difference. So I named it Real American Pitbull Terrier. But people didn't know what the real American Pitbull Terrier was, or even an American Pitbull Terrier. Most people just knew the pit bull. And that's why I created that therealpitbull.com. And therealpitbull.com, it was just a page to educate people that I was working on. So now you guys understand all these different concepts, and that all those dogs out there, 99.9% are actually not real pit bulls. Even those with the pedigree, most of them don't have great quality. And since the framework of the breed is only the best and F the rest, we live in a breed of comparison. Compare this to that, get the best one. Compare this car to the car. Which one is faster? That one is faster. Take that one. That's the one we want. With the American Pitbull Terrier, that's the same way. Which is the best dog? A or B and C? Okay, we want B is the best one. Okay, we want to keep B. That's the best one. So we're going to breed this one to any female that is on that same level, and that creates the breed. Someone that loves his dog and is like, this is my dog and I like it because it's mine, that guy don't qualify. His dog don't qualify. Those dogs don't qualify. The only ones that qualify are only the best. And that's what built the American Pitbull Terrier. Understanding this in the 90s helped me understand that there were many bloodlines, and that everyone that you met on a particular bloodline will give you 20 reasons why the dogs of his bloodline, the dog of his friend, the dogs that he got are the best dogs in the world. So how can I find out in 1990, which it was the beginning of the golden era of American Pitbull Terriers, the real ones, how can I know what's a real pit bull, are the best dogs in the world? Well, there was a measuring stick. A measuring stick means a scoreboard. where the best dogs, the most grand champions, the best producers were written down in a magazine called the Sporting Dog Journal. People will report which the best dogs they got, and then they were tally the best they can by a guy called Jack Kelly. And that's how the dogs were tally. And there were great dogs at the time. There were some dogs that were better than others. People lie a little bit sometimes on their reports. Some of the people didn't lie, they were honest. But the bottom line is that there was a measuring stick, and that gave you an idea. But breeders did what breeders always do. They will go with the mentality of Americans that is very wrong, which is the mentality of my team. I'm a Cowboy fan, and I don't care if Tom Brady is the best football player in the history of football. I'm going to support my shitty quarterback of the Cowboys. So that tribal feeling of supporting the one that belongs to you, it really hurt breeders. And they couldn't see. They were colorblind, bloodline blind, and they were blinded by ignorance at best. And so they couldn't develop greater dogs. But there was young Chico Lopez with a lot of vision, a lot of observation, a lot of mentality, and understanding of competition, and understanding of the human factor that most people are below average. And I didn't want to listen or learn from anybody, and I didn't want to study too much history, because at the beginning I didn't want to be a historian. I never saw myself making videos like these. All I wanted to do is own the best American Pitbull Terrier in the world. That was the only thing that matters to me, own the best. And I had to go through a journey that extends till today, where I developed the greatest American Pitbull Terriers in the history of the breed. Dogs, like I just mentioned, like Global Grand Champion, Copperhead Dog of the Year, Global Champion Carmela Soprano Dog of the Year. All these great dogs like Global Champion Copper Day, Rum, all these great dogs made a huge difference as a family. They have one big difference from anybody else. They have many differences, but one of them is very important. The fact that the bloodline was not developed by the work of 10,000 men. It was developed by the work of one man, Chico Lopez. A few men came seasonal here and there, but nobody carried the responsibility and the vision for the bloodline except Chico Lopez. And that made a big difference. There was one big difference. People can come in and out, but the one that stood always with the vision, with everything, was Chico Lopez. And that made a difference. It's a perfect bloodline, the best there is, and we developed the greatest American Pitbull Terriers. Dogs like Awesome Buck. And the process of creation of the Golden Vein is a different video. I hope you like it. I hope you see it. I hope you watch it. I hope you hear it as a podcast. And that is exactly how the original American Pitbull Terriers went from the 1800s all the way to 2024. In difference to everybody in the swamp that is fighting dogs and showing dogs in America and teaching people to become scumbags and the reunions of the losers, we had a different path. I never wanted to be around those people, and I wanted to be around great men. So I was the first elite level dogman that turned around and gave the finger to the so-called swamp and decided to preserve the dogs for the best families in America, to preserve the dogs for the families of the winners, the doctors, the lawyers, the engineers, the life professionals, the entrepreneurs, the businessmen, the people that fought in life to become better, for the people that want only the best and F the rest. And some family members that wanted to preserve, they wanted to fight for the children and put them to college and become winners. For those families that don't have children and they want to have one dog or two dogs and want to have the best dogs in the world. For those who have pit bulls before and those dogs are gone and the only thing they have is pit bull mutts and they're tired of looking at those dogs, then they look at Chico Lopez and say, I want a dog from Chico Lopez. If they qualify, they'll get one. I don't sell to everybody. I wanted to have the best people around me, people that I can trust, people that I can call and talk to them. So I say that the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a blacklist. And in that blacklist, the first people on the top is called the swamp. And around with the swamp is called the breeders. Anyone that breeds is not welcome to own one of my dogs. Only the best people that want to have a dog as a pet, give it a good life until it dies. And that's exactly what we're standing on 2024. We have plans for the next 20 to 30 years for the American Pitbull Terrier. No breeders, and the more we breed our dogs, the better they become. And on the other hand, the more they breed the dogs, the further away from quality, from greatness people are, because they don't know much about what matters in the breed. The stuff they know is as basic, as common as the mind of a common man. They have Genitor IQ. And I don't want to say that all Genitors are low IQ, but if you understand what I'm saying, their mentality is pedestrian level, their understanding is pedestrian level, and most people have no idea how to work genetics, how to develop a bloodline, and their qualities and their attributions in life might be others, but not to create great dogs. I witnessed how the dogs of 1990 that were great, all the bloodlines got destroyed. I can tell you after 34 years that I saw hundreds, thousands of men with dreams talking about what they're going to do. How about this? How about this combination? That thing, did this, all right. Every excuse in the book. What bloodline you're running? What you got to do? The acros, the blah, the hula. And they did not go anywhere. You look at the magazines, all magazines from the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s, you open them and you look at those magazines and you say, these guys here is guaranteed by the 2024 they didn't go anywhere. They don't exist anymore. The bloodlines didn't make it further than the covers of, not the covers, but the pages of magazines, announcements and advertisements of magazines. They didn't make it any further. Because in order for you to last for a long time, you have to have a plan. You have to put the hours, the work, the dedication. It's not just hobby. It's more than a lifestyle. It's your life. And these are the real American Pitbull Terriers, and that's the origin of it. The further back you go, the less information you go, the more blurry the lines are. But that's a general idea of where the American Pitbull Terriers came from and the men that were involved. I would have to say that the 70s is the base of 20 years between the 70s and the 1990s. That was the base. But in 1950, there was a major event that happened in 1950 that made the dogs change forever. The body type, the shape, everything else that includes to make up for a better dog. Put it this way, the barrel type of body shape, it was gone because those changes that happened in the 1950s. And they were good changes. And every time you make a change, everything changes. There's a perfection in the American Pitbull Terrier. And the perfection is the framework of best to best in the hands of the great men. Because the breeder is the brand. And if your brand sucks because the breeder is nobody, then you don't even have to wonder if your dog is a Pitbull or not a Pitbull. Many people contact me and say, is this a dog a Pitbull? And I said, what's the brand of the dog? I said, some guy bred it. I said, well, that's not a real American Pitbull Terrier. That might be a dog that suits your personal needs, but it's not a real American Pitbull Terrier. But it looks similar. I said, a lot of things look similar, brother. There's a guy called Michael Jordan, and you can find a lot of lookalikes like him, but they know Michael Jordans. So it's the same thing. You must understand the difference between real and fake. My name is Chico Lopez, and if you like this type of videos, drop a comment, leave a comment, let us know you like the videos, ask for more, drop your questions, support the channel, share the content, bring great people around. We are promoting the American Pitbull Terrier, my dogs, to the best families as pets. We are against the idea of anybody can breed a dog because we've seen everybody fail doing the same thing. They didn't last. They didn't endure. Want to learn a little bit more? Get a book. It's called From Good to Great by Jim Collins. Write it down, From Good to Great by Jim Collins. That's the book you need to learn how to create something great. Buying books around about dogs, take a look at the size of the writer of the book, and that tells you if the book is worth reading or not. Again, Chico Lopez, as always. 123pitbulls.com. My number is 806-500-5552. And if you want to be featured in one of my podcast videos, let me know. And if I have time, I might give you the time to be in one of them. God bless you. Take care. Love your dogs. Do the best. Thank you.